What is Kaizen? Okay. Kai means change and Zen means for the better. So Kaizen as a concept is nothing but change for the better. And it is something that has been powered to bring about a lasting change. So these are efforts that we put in on a day-to-day basis that help us for a lasting change. It's not a very temporary, it's not transitory, right? Whatever changes we bring about as part of the Kaizen process are something that will last for a lifetime. Okay? They are meant to last for a lifetime. It's about bringing about a habitual change in us as person, in our relationships, in our finances, in our businesses, in our processes for that matter. So Kaizen is nothing but a kind of an approach which was developed, which was popularized by the Japanese, but it was actually created in America. Okay, it was actually created in America, but adopted by the Japanese people after World War II. How did Sarah Harvey, who's a writer of Kaizen, actually went about writing this book? She is somebody who's used to work, or rather works for a publishing company. She was based in London. And while she had a fantastic job, she was very happy, satisfied with what she was doing, there was something missing in her. She was kind of constantly looking for that something that was not giving her that joy in life, right? And she wanted to understand more about doing something, bringing about certain changes in her life, etc. And she came to a conclusion that her routine that she used to follow, her life had become a routine, a set pattern. And because she was so used to this comfort zone, as we call it, she was finding it very difficult to bring about change, to bring about happiness in her life. Right? Now, just by sheer luck, at that point of time, she got transferred by her company to go to Japan. And when she went to Japan, she actually got introduced to this concept called Kaizen. And that's where the book started originating. The thought started coming to her mind because she started utilizing a lot of Kaizen techniques into her life. And that's why she realized that it was important for her to spread this word with others. So she wrote this wonderful book called Kaizen. Okay? It's a very simple book, very easy to read. Even if you see the fonts, they are very, very easy to read, very easy going. You will not even feel, even an iota of heaviness when you're reading this because it's so simple, right? It does have a lot of her experiences as part of the whole thing, but at the same time, she's also kind of referring to the technicalities that are involved in Kaizen as a concept. Though she doesn't get too much involved with the technicalities per se, but she's tried to touch upon this and try to make the book as readable as possible and as adaptable as possible by people per se. So Kaizen basically teaches us about personal life, having a flexible approach, right, towards life, and bringing about certain changes in lifestyles, in relationships, in emotions that are going to last forever. Okay. It's not a book or it's not a concept that says bring about a drastic change overnight. It won't tell you, okay, from tomorrow you're going to change the way you look at the world. It's not going to happen. Kaizen is a step-by-step approach towards life itself, and that is what it kind of stands for. So what is Kaizen? So Kaizen means improvement from small to significant. Okay? The Kaizen method encourages us to set a personal goal and make good changes for ourselves, starting small and moving to the big goals one by one. So it's an approach that we can easily follow. It's a very easy to use technique, so to say. It tells you that you cannot bring about a drastic change in your life overnight. It is not possible because the human mind is not conditioned in that fashion. We are not supposed to make drastic changes to our life. We are not equipped to move out of our comfort zone so easily. So instead of totally giving up on what you want to achieve in life, it is important for us to take small baby steps, one by one, and then move forward. So how did the Kaizen technique help Japan as a country per se? So Kaizen was first practiced in Japanese businesses after the Second World War, right? We all know the history of Japan, so we're not going to go there, right? But after for the first 5 years after the war ended, Japan had nothing going for it. There was no industry, there was no growth, there was no development, there was nothing happening. And then suddenly this group of businesses from America kind of started coming into Japan. And they started realizing that there is an interesting way of bringing about change. Don't change it drastically. Bring about step-by-step changes in your businesses. Start making small changes, because if we start small, we are going to see the bigger changes that are going to come eventually. Textile companies were the first group of companies in Japan to actually implement this process. And from 1960 to 1970, Japan went on to become the largest exporter of textile in the world, only because of the use of Kaizen as a technology. They started implementing one machine at a time, one change at a time, one design at a time, one pattern at a time, and in 10 years they actually became so powerful that they became the largest exporter of textiles in the world. Then came the Toyota way. So Toyota was the first kind of a big brand in the world that kind of adopted the Kaizen techniques. And it said, we are going to bring about small changes in the way we are working. So in Toyota's factory assembly lines, you will see that there are specialists in every single field. The way they work is that they've specialized even the smallest of the jobs. Right? So even if there is somebody who's supposed to just clean up the car after it's done, there'll be a specialized person who's been doing it for ages. Okay? And that guy also is extremely important in the entire value chain. If there is somebody who's fitting just the nuts in the car, that fellow is a specialist in fitting nuts. He kind of is such a level of specialization that he knows everything about every single nut and bolt in that car. Right? So what they started doing was they started bringing about these special changes, these specialized changes in the way the assembly line was working. Earlier it was very simple. One person was told, you do this. Whoever is available on the floor, just do everything. No, then they realized that super specialization was helping them in actually creating the entire process as a fantastic way of bringing things together. Right? It's a very important thing to also understand in life as well. Many a times we do not value this, but how many times in our lives have we actually thought about that cleaner who comes and cleans our roads in the morning, okay, or that person who comes and picks up the garbage in the night, right? We do not value such people as well. Or when we go to a particular mall and we see there are these swanky restrooms that are all there, well maintained, hygienic, but there are people who are working behind to actually make sure that this is happening, right? When we go to watch a movie, there are hundreds and thousands of people who've actually worked on making that movie happen, right? When we actually go to a coffee shop, there are hundreds of people who are working in those coffee shops to give us the best experience of those coffee shops, to maintain that place, the hygiene of that place, and to ensure that we actually have a best experience. Sometimes as individuals we tend to forget these little minor things, but these little minor things come together and provide an experience to us in life. And in short, that is what Kaizen also talks about. That we need to also acknowledge these small little changes that are happening, these small little contributions that are made by people in our lives, which kind of overall gives our life a certain reason and a certain meaning and a certain way of how we kind of work around in life as well. Kaizen as a concept in Japan was made popular, or rather was kind of corporatized by a gentleman by the name of Masaki Imai. Masaki Imai is known as the father of Kaizen. And why is he known? Even though he never invented the technique, but he was the guy who actually first wrote about Kaizen. Imai was an organizational theorist, and he was a consultant. He was a management consultant. And he brought about this concept for the first time in 1986 when he started something called as the Kaizen Kaizen Institute Consulting Group in 1986. And this group was actually was in Japan, but it was actually meant to provide Kaizen consulting techniques or teachings to the Western world. Now look at the irony of sorts. The concept that actually came from the West to here kind of became such a specialized concept, and that again shows the power of Kaizen, because the Japanese kind of got so much in depth with the concept and so much in love with that concept that actually today people feel that Kaizen is a Japanese concept. In reality, it is not. It's actually a Western way of working. It's actually a Western way of life, right? But the Japanese adapted it so much since the 1960s that eventually they kind of claimed, ownership of that in 1986 when Masaki Imai started taking the concept in a corporate fashion and took it to the West. Signed up a lot of US companies who started coming on board to learn more about how Toyota went about doing what it went about doing and how other companies in Japan adapted the Kaizen techniques. And it's not just that Kaizen was adopted by the private sector in Japan, but even the public sector, even the government went about adapting things from Kaizen, techniques from Kaizen in the way that they worked. So how do we start with Kaizen? It's very simple and it's very easy. There are 4 things we always have to keep in mind. Number 1, we always have to be optimistic. Anything that life is giving us could be an opportunity in business, could be an opportunity in life, relationships, money, travel, people. We need to be optimistic in life, right? Being optimistic kind of sets our minds in a certain fashion or conditions our mind in a certain fashion where we now know that we've kind of almost achieved that goal. It all starts with the mind, right? So for example, if we dream of owning a car, right? Instead of worrying about the fact that, how will I own a car, I don't earn enough, I don't have enough money and all of that, we should try and see what do we need to do to own a car. Right? Because if we tell ourselves that we don't have enough money to own our dream car, by default, and again this is linked to something called manifestation as well and the power of the subconscious mind, we are in a way telling our mind, telling ourselves and accepting that we cannot own that car. Being optimistic and having a positive attitude towards what we want to achieve in life is half the battle won. Right? So if we want to own a car, instead of saying, oh, I can't afford it, we should say, what is it that I need to do to afford it or to own it? And then work towards those goals. That's the first step of adapting Kaizen in our lives. And it's the first rule that you can even adapt in your businesses. Instead of saying, I can't be successful, or this business, this profession of mine is not good for me, or I hate my job, or I don't want to work in this job or whatever, instead of saying that, try to say positive things, have a positive outlook towards that. And you will see that suddenly the way in which your thinking itself brings about a change. So that's the first step of recognizing, of starting off with Kaizen, having an optimistic view of life. Number 2, do not fix the method to suit yourself. Most of us, what we do is very convenient. We focus on the power of convenience, right? It's very convenient for me, so I'm going to do it in this fashion, right? I don't understand this method, but I will tweak it a little bit to kind of suit myself. So what Kaizen talks about is that a lot of us, so a simple example, and I think I gave this example in the last session as well. Everybody has a dream to go to the gym and form a great body. Okay? I may want to go and lose weight. Okay? Now, there is a method to lose weight. Just by joining a gym and telling myself that, okay, now I've joined a gym, I will lose weight, it's not going to happen. So for the sake of my own convenience, yes, part of the first step is I need to do some activity, right? So assuming I join a gym or I join a cycling club or whatever, I have joined an activity. But now I have to do the activity. And those results are going to come over a period of time. And if I start something and I leave it after 7 days, it's not going to get me results. Or if I very conveniently say that, you know what, okay, I've joined a gym, I'll go there once a week. We should not fix the method. What most of us do is we try to adapt the method to suit ourselves. Methods are not meant for convenience. There is a reason why those methods have been created in a certain fashion, right? So if we have to do that, and that's why if you see, again, when it comes to cars or when it comes to aviation, when it comes to, machines for that matter, sometimes when you try to skip even one small thing, it could lead to a disaster, right? So mechanically, you are not allowed to kind of skip even one method. You can't say, oh, I forgot to put one nut here, or I forgot to put one bolt here. That's going to lead to a disaster at some point of time. So you are not supposed to kind of do a thing in that particular fashion. So follow the method to the core with all honesty and sincerity. Yes, we may not do it every day. So if you want to bring about certain change, if you want to go to the gym, fine. You can't go 5 days a week. At least start with once a week and then gradually increase it. That's the way of how Kaizen will teach us. Kaizen method basically also tells us to first see the problem. Okay? We first need to see the problem, observe the slightest problem, and then make minor improvements to it. Okay? Again, seeing the problem and accepting the problem is a big process, big part of the Kaizen process. Okay? Because if we don't know where to bring about the change, what are we aiming for? We should have a clear direction where we are going into. What is that problem that we want to address? So see the problem. We need to first identify what the problem is and then go after it, which is something which is critical if we want to bring about the change. Because if we don't know what the problem is, we don't know what we are trying to solve as a solution. Last is very important, which is also a way of working in life otherwise as well, is always be thankful for the method as well. Always be thankful for the small change that are coming out as well. So in Kaizen, one of the things is also that is taught about is to bring about change, but be grateful for that change that has come out, no matter how small that change will be. Being grateful is also a great step in terms of thanking the universe for the efforts that the universe has put into the entire way of bringing about the change. So it's extremely important and extremely critical for us to also say, be grateful for the change that has been brought about. Because a lot of us follow the process, follow the method, and then forget about thanking whoever is involved in the process as well. Right? Because acknowledging the fact that there were people who contributed to that growth is also something that's very important. Because if you are acknowledging that, you're in a way kind of making sure you're opening doors for more learnings, for more receivings that are going to come in the future, for more changes which are going to come in the future. So again, be grateful and be thankful for the changes that have actually come about in your life as well. So what's the cycle to success? Okay. We all have this thing, we all want to be successful. Okay? We all want to be happy. There are various definitions of success and happiness. Right? I'm going to define success as growth. Okay? Growth in any sphere of life, growth in any phase of life. Whether it's life, whether it's work, whether it's anything that we are talking about, I'm going to define that as growth. So growth, what is the main thing that growth asks for? In order to grow, we need to change. That's the first step. Growth will ask for change. Okay? Is it easy to change? Some of you are nodding your head. I don't know whether it's for yes or no, but it's not easy to change, right? Why is it not easy to change? Because change demands that we get out of our comfort zones. Change will always ask, get out of your comfort zone. If you're able to get out of your comfort zone, you can change. But is it easy to get out of our comfort zones?
Not always.
Not always. Because comfort zone will demand status quo. Comfort zone will tell you, be where you are. Why do you want to go? Why do you want to bring about a change? Why do you want to challenge yourself? Why do you want to challenge your life per se? Forget it. Just stay where you are. Be happy. Right? Be satisfied with what you are. But are we satisfied with people, with our lives? No. We always want more. We always want the growth to come by. So status quo makes us lazy. It's all interlinked. Change, growth will demand change. Change will mean coming out of your comfort zone. Comfort zone will say maintain the status quo. Status quo will make us lazy. If we are in that status quo, in that same process, same routine of what we are following every day, we're going to get lazy at some point of time. We'll stop contributing to what we are doing as well. Laziness doesn't help us to change. Simple. Right? Has a lazy person ever changed himself? Or ever changed the world? You need to be doing something, right? Because change demands action. You need to change something, you need to act on it. Right? And we can explain this via an example as well, but change will demand us to act. And action, the first step of acting is what? It's identification of the problem. Identification of what is wrong with us. Why do we want to change? What is the reason why you want to bring about a change in yourself? What is wrong? Right? Like one of you said, I'm struggling with changing my habits. Why do you want to change your habits? Aren't you happy with what you are? Right? Because you've moved into a zone where now you become lazy, and when you become lazy you realize you're not bringing about that change that is needed in your life. You're not being fair to the world around you. You're not being fair to your job. You're not being fair to your relationships. You're not being fair to your own life per se. And that's why you want change. For that you need to act. For acting, you need to first identify the problem. So identify the problem. One of the methods of Kaizen. Identify the problem, and once you identify the problem, find the solution. What is the solution? So a lot of people, when I coach people in my counseling sessions, a lot of people come forward and say, I hate my job. So I asked them the same thing. I said, do you think I'm a career coach? I'm not. I'm not somebody who's going to help you find a job. I'm not a career counselor, nor am I a recruiter. Right? If you hate your job, you are the only person who's going to change it. You've already identified the problem. Now change, make the change. The challenge is, changing is not that easy. Right? Because there are lots and lots of other factors that influence that changes. So problem demands a solution. Right? Solution needs time to show change. It's not going to happen overnight. We took an example of going to the gym and losing weight. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not that you go to the gym and tomorrow you're going to lose 5 kgs. It doesn't happen. It takes time. All of us have learned hobbies, right? Let's say, for example, cycling. We've all learned cycling or swimming. Were we able to cycle on the first instance? Didn't we all fell down while cycling? Most of us did. Right? Didn't we ever encounter a thing where we tried to go swimming and we had a bout of the fact that, we are about to drown? We've all had water in our mouth, in our nostrils, in our eyes, in our ears and everywhere, and we've experienced. Did we give up? I mean, some of us may have. But we generally do not give up because there is a method. There is a way to learn it. There is a way we learn things. And that is how it needs to be followed. So, change happens in a slow fashion, and solution needs that time to change. And change will eventually bring growth. So we come back to the first point, that growth demands change. And we've just covered a full cycle of what we are supposed to do when we talk about bringing about growth. So what we are aiming for is growth in our lives. But certain techniques which will help us in terms of using Kaizen positively is also in our workplace, which we can use is things like interacting much more with nature. Right? It's a very important technique. It's a very important part of connecting with the nature that will help us have a positive outlook towards the world. Right? So nowadays a lot of offices are coming up where they're talking about open spaces, not air-conditioned spaces. I mean, unfortunately, in this part of the world, you cannot afford to not have air conditioning. But a lot of other offices are coming up now where you're spending a lot of time in the outdoors. You're working in nature. You're working with nature. You're doing activities with nature. The way your offices are lit as well. There should be a lot of sunlight. We should be spending a lot of time with the sun. We should be spending a lot of time with nature, with natural lights. Right? That has a very positive impact on our minds. And maybe some of you are architects and stuff who can kind of tell us that the importance of lighting today. Natural lighting is so important in terms of maintaining a positive mindset towards any problem that you are doing. Simple things like going for a walk, right? Taking phone calls and walking parallelly, right? Taking a break, meditating for 5 minutes itself during lunch breaks, for example. Okay, meditation doesn't necessarily require you to get into that whole depth of spiritual mode, but just simply closing your eyes, shutting your phone off, closing your eyes and sitting quietly for 5 minutes itself re-energizes you. Reading positive books about success, happiness, self-improvement, self-growth, adapting hobbies, adapting activities, meeting positive people. These are all ways and means of how you can enhance your work self as well, your professional self as well, as part of the Kaizen technique. Okay, interestingly, what Kaizen talks about in terms of making money as well. Lots of us have, various ways of how we look at money. Money has a different definition for different people, right? But in a nutshell, there are 3 basic things that Kaizen talks about when it comes to making money. Buy what you need. We need to start decluttering our homes, our minds, our lives in a fashion, because we have a habit as human beings to keep on accumulating things, keep on grabbing things, right? We keep on grabbing things from time to time. We can simply go on a shopping spree, we will end up buying things which we don't require. So one of the key things in terms of positive Kaizen is buy what you need. Reuse what you can. Another important thing that is part of the Kaizen philosophy is that we need to reuse what we can. It's not necessary for us to every time go and buy. Last is discard or donate what we do not require. Right? Because there are lots of things in our lives which we just don't need. These techniques may directly not help you make money, but any money saved is also money earned. When you're buying things unnecessary, you're losing money. You're not saving that money. Again, relationships. Right? Very touchy topic, very sensitive topic. A lot of us have gone through ups and downs. All of us have gone through ups and downs. There is nothing called perfect relationship in this world. Okay? We also have problems with our parents. Let's start there. There is none of us will say, oh, I love my parents to the core, and whatever they say is fine. Doesn't happen. We all want to change them, or they want to change us. Right? Simple. We've all gone through that. Just talk about that relationship. Does that mean you give it up? No. Slowly and steadily you try to bring about a change in that. Probably you adapt certain changes, the other person adapts certain changes, and that's how life kind of continues. Relationship is not only about what happens between a man and a woman, it's also about what happens of how you interact with the outside world. It could be between friends, could be between colleagues, it could be between other people as well that we meet. Brothers, sisters, siblings, friend circle, social people that we meet, etc. There are always certain things in relationships that we would like to change, but they always happen in slow and steady fashion. We don't expect the other person to change overnight. One of the root causes of anger in our life is not because we are angry on someone else, we are angry because we are not able to bring about that change in them.
You are judging. If you are judging outside, you are judging yourself.
You're judging yourself. Because anger is usually directed towards your own self. Your own inability to bring about a change in the other person. And that's what causes a lot of problems in relationships, which we need to address slowly and steadily by asking the right questions. Right? So, to conclude, there are a few ways in which Kaizen tells us to bring about a happy life. Certain things which we can adapt in our lives. If we do that, slowly and steadily we'll see a lasting change that comes in. Okay? First and foremost, change what's causing misery. If something's causing misery in life, something's causing unhappiness in life, bring about a change. That's the only way. You cannot be stuck into something and then expect your life to be better. Not possible. No matter how hard that decision is, you're the only person who's going to change. So change what's causing you misery. Number 2, do what makes you happy. Bring about positive things in your life. Do things that bring about happiness and joy in your life. Pick up a hobby. Extremely important. Right? We all think we have no time for hobbies. I have many of my clients who come and tell me this. We don't have time for anything. People who tell me we don't have time are the ones who are fooling time themselves or fooling themselves. Right? We all have time for everything. It's a matter of how we prioritize it and how we use it. Having a hobby is a fantastic way to bring about a balance in our life as well. It's in fact one of the main things we also use as a technique in logotherapy, where creativity, focusing on creativity, being creative, is actually something that brings about a balance in our minds. Make activity friends. It's again very important as a part of bringing about a change in our lives. Make someone else responsible for your success or your growth. So for example, we spoke about going to the gym, right? Most of us fail because we just take the step ourselves alone and then we forget about it. But imagine if we have a gym buddy. We have somebody, we're part of a group. We're part of a group that's pushing us, right? That's waking us up every morning and saying, let's go. Take the simple example of going to the school, right? As kids, why did we end up going to schools in a lot of instances is because they were friends, right? We all hated school, but the whole idea of going out and then doing things with your friends, right? Engaging with them, going to school with them, going in a school bus, forming a circle of your own, doing activities there, right? In a way, we were all responsible for each other. So if we use that same philosophy and appoint someone else to also keep a tab on our success and our growth, is also a great Kaizen way to understand that we will bring about change. So if we are able to have activity friends, we'll be able to do things better in our lives. And we'll be able to bring about happiness because you also get the joy of companionship with other people, friendship with other people. And that is also something that is important in a Kaizen work because if you see, it's a methodological process. If one person is responsible for the nuts, the other person is responsible for the bolts, the third person is responsible for the cleaning, all of them are interdependent. If the person has not tightened the nut and bolt, this guy can't go about cleaning and polishing the whole thing. Right? So it's also about making each other responsible. That you do your job so I can do mine. That's another way of looking at how Kaizen can bring about happiness in our life. So have activity friends. Have friends who are going to keep a tab on you, and that's how you're going to make progress in life. So that in short is what Kaizen will teach you. It'll tell you how to bring about changes in your life. Each of us can adapt these changes in our own methods, in our own ways. It can be subjective. Like I said in the beginning, happiness is defined or growth is defined differently by different people. It's up to you how you want to define it and how you want to adapt it in your own way of life.